planted this sage plant about 2 years ago from a seed, and look at how big it is. It's done so great. Now, I just left it alone for 2 years and I never harvested it, but today's the day. It's late January. I can tell that it's starting to get a little weary, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna harvest it and we're gonna process it so we can have the fruits of this sage plant for years to come. Hi, I'm Sonia with Suburban Gardening. It is so satisfying for me to be able to walk out into my garden and harvest sage, thyme, or whatever I have growing in my garden. And this sage is absolutely no exception. Now it's late January and this plant is ready to be harvested. I'm going to take it down to the ground about 2 inches above the ground. That'll give it plenty of airflow so we can come back in the spring. We're going to take it inside and we're going to take all the leaves off and prepare them. So we'll be drying them, but I also have a way that I keep them in the refrigerator for quite a long time. And then I'm going to show you how to take the cuttings and root them so you can make new plants of your own. Sage also can grow very well inside of a pot, but just like rosemary, they're woody plants and they do like to spread out. So if you do choose to grow it in a pot, be sure you have a pretty good size. Now I've got 3 of them just like this that I grew from seeds, and these are headed over to my daughter's house because she wants to harvest her own sage as well. But as you can see, this plant is struggling a little bit in this small pot. So we want to get it out of this pot into either a bigger pot or out into a garden bed somewhere where it can do a lot better. So what we're going to do is I just want to give you one example of how you can propagate the sage before I harvest it all. So basically this one has very, very long stems, and I just cut it way down there at the bottom. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off all of this, and then I have this whole top right here, and I'm going to trim that top off. Now you can see that I have just one long stem, and I'm going to find the leaf node, which is the bulging part, and I'm going to cut it right below. Now normally if you were going to be pruning something, you would cut it above the leaf node, but this time I'm going to cut it right below the leaf node. And I have just a little inexpensive cup with water, and I'm going to put it down in there. You can see there's going to be several leaf nodes that will be down inside the water. I'm just going to leave it like that. Well, actually, I'm going to take off a lot of this. Why don't we do that now? We need to take off a lot of this green because it's too hard for the plant to grow the roots in the water and try to make leaves as well. So we're just going to go ahead, and I know it doesn't look like much now, but in about 2 months or maybe even less, it's going to have a full root system, and when the roots come, we can go ahead and put it down in a pot just like this one, and it'll grow and be a beautiful plant. So these little bulging areas right here are considered the leaf nodes. There's one down here as well. So I'm going to be making cuts right above the leaf node. I'm going to get this one down kind of low. And that way this leaf node will grow fresh new leaves and a nice big healthy plant. I wish you guys could smell this. It smells amazing. When I finish harvesting all this wonderful sage, I'm going to get down here and clean up the mess that it left underneath, you know, just the drop leaves and things. And what that will do was it would make the airflow really good in here, and it will keep bugs from hiding and making their little home inside of all of this debris. So I have strawberries in here, and I have this great little lemon plant that I started from seeds, and I'm going to be putting some spring bulbs in here in the next week or 2. So I will be putting some time release fertilizer in here, and that will help in the spring when it really needs a punch to get all those leaves started. I was really able to harvest quite a lot of sage, so I'm going to be able to do a lot of things with it. But I just want to show you the application of how you dry it or how you store it. I have a couple different ways to do it. Some's for the short term and some it's for the long term. First thing I have to do though is I've got to get it washed because I don't know what's been crawling around on there, and I need to get all of these leaves picked off. So I basically just pick them off with my fingers one at a time. If you like, you can use scissors, or if you have a different way to do it, that'd be great too. It really doesn't take that long. It's just something you can do when you're just sitting watching TV or something like that. The application for drying sage is the same as drying pretty much any herb in your garden. I just recently did this with some parsley. I do it with thyme. I do it with cilantro. Basically, all you need to do if you don't have any special drying equipment is just sprinkle it out on a cookie sheet and let it sit out there for a couple of weeks. And you'll have some nice dry sage you can keep for a long time. You can put it in a jar and show it off on your counter if you want to. The way that I do it is that I put it in my dehumidifier, and all I do is I load it up here on my trays, and it actually has to stay in the dehumidifier for about 24 hours. But I load up all these trays, so when it's finished, then I can go ahead and process them into some really pretty jars, and then I have sage for a very long time. Let me show you what the sage looks like after it's all dry. This has been in my dehumidifier for about 24 hours, and it's crispy. I don't know if you can hear that. It's crispy. It's ready to either be processed just like this. Sometimes I like to keep the leaves big, kind of like working with a bay leaf. But other times I like to crush it up and make it into a powder. So it's totally up to you how you want to do it. If I was going to crush it into a powder, I just put it into a small food processor and blend it around a little bit. We've got quite a bit here. I wanted to tell you something a little bit interesting about the sage. About 2 days ago, I put very hot water, maybe 1/4 cup of hot water, into this measuring cup, and then I dropped in just one dry leaf. And the reason I did that was I wanted to show you guys how quickly this reconstitutes. So after about 4 hours, this sage leaf came right back to the way that it had been before. And if you'll notice, if you can see, all of the brown in here, well, that is the juices and the flavor from the sage leaf. So when you take these leaves and you drop them into your chicken noodle soup or whatever it is that you're making, it's amazing how the flavor just permeates all of the liquids. I just love it that there's so many applications that you can do with one simple little herb. There's another way that you can process it, and you can cut the stems off. I sort of took off the dead leaves, and you can tie a cotton string around it and just hang it up in a dry place where it can just dry on its own. And a lot of people prefer to do it that way. So it really depends on you and how much space you have and that kind of thing. Well, there's another quality of sage that I really like, and I learned about this a long time ago. And I'm sure you've heard that people put it in chicken noodle soup. And one of the reasons we eat chicken noodle soup is if we're sick and we have a cold or the flu, something like that. Well, sage has properties in it that actually help soothe a cold or the flu. So I always like to have it on hand, and I will drink sage tea if I'm not feeling very well, because it does really help. So if you do that, just put some sage in some boiling water, not very much, I'd say about a teaspoon to a cup of water, and you'll have a perfect cup of sage tea. This is the type of jar that I like to keep all my herbs in. I just really like the way it looks, and I like the way that it keeps it nice and fresh. So I'm not going to crunch these leaves up. I'm going to leave them whole. I know that it's wintertime and I'm going to be doing a lot of cooking. So I just like to drop a whole leaf down in there, and it makes it taste delicious. Well, that's pretty much all I have for the sage today. And there's always so many things to talk about in the garden. So thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.